The sound of the gavel wasn't what drew attention, it was the silence that followed. Inside a Utah courtroom, the case of State of Utah versus Tyler James Robinson unfolded with a tension that reached far beyond legal arguments. Every seat was filled, every face tight with anticipation, and yet, amid the legal jargon and formal exchanges, one question lingered in the air: can justice ever feel fair when grief has no voice? Hit subscribe and turn on your bell so you don't miss the next update on this unfolding story and others like it. The court gathered to address procedural matters in the ongoing prosecution of Tyler Robinson, the man accused of murdering conservative activist Charlie Kirk outside a Turning Point USA event. On paper, it was supposed to be a routine session: motions, discovery updates, and scheduling. But in reality, it became a reflection of something much larger than law: the moral and emotional divide between due process for the accused and the unending pain of those left behind. Robinson's defense team, the prosecution, and the presiding judge each played their part, yet beneath the legal decorum was a quiet storm of resentment, confusion, and public outrage brewing far beyond the courtroom walls. The case had already become a national spectacle, its political undertones and social symbolism making every ruling feel like a referendum on justice itself. Judge Martha Leclerc began the session with words that struck both calm and controversy. She emphasized that the courtroom must remain a sanctuary for fairness, a space where even the most despised defendant receives the full protection of constitutional rights. Justice, she said, is not vengeance dressed in procedure. Her statement underscored the fragile balance at the heart of the case, ensuring fairness for Robinson while honoring the dignity of Charlie Kirk's family. In principle, her message was unassailable. But to many watching, especially those who saw Kirk not as a public figure but as a husband, a friend, and a father, it sounded like compassion tilted toward the wrong side of the aisle. Leclerc's insistence on impartiality was rooted in law, yet in a moment defined by pain, impartiality can feel like indifference. The very thing meant to preserve justice can sometimes look like the obstacle that delays it. The most polarizing moment of the hearing came when the defense requested, and received, permission for Robinson to appear in civilian clothing instead of his jail-issued uniform. It was a common procedural request, meant to prevent bias in the eyes of jurors and media coverage. But symbolically, it was explosive. To victims, advocates and members of the public, the sight of Robinson in a neatly pressed shirt rather than an orange jumpsuit was unbearable. It felt like an attempt to soften his image, to present him as a man, not a murderer. The outrage spread instantly online, with hashtags demanding "Justice for Charlie" trending across platforms. Critics argued that this small act of comfort was a betrayal of the suffering family sitting silently in the gallery. Supporters of due process countered that appearances cannot dictate fairness. Yet the emotional impact was undeniable. When someone accused of taking a life is granted small dignities, the families of the dead often feel their own dignity shrinking in response. Public debate erupted across social media and talk shows, dividing audiences along familiar fault lines. Some called the system cold but necessary, while others saw it as compassion misplaced. Commentators asked why the accused is often humanized while victims are reduced to exhibits in a courtroom slideshow. The discussion expanded beyond Robinson and Kirk. It became a referendum on American justice itself. The contrast between optics and empathy, between rights and remembrance, revealed how fragile the public's trust in the legal process has become. People weren't simply angry about the defendant's attire, they were angry about what it represented, a legal system that seems more comfortable protecting process than confronting pain. Meanwhile, the evidence mounting against Robinson was substantial: DNA traces, fingerprints, and a sequence of digital messages that prosecutors claim prove premeditation. Yet as hearings progressed, the focus shifted away from the substance of those facts toward procedural disputes, motions to suppress evidence, debates over admissibility, and wrangling over discovery deadlines. Each delay, each legal technicality, chipped away at the patience of those who only wanted answers. For Charlie Kirk's widow, Erika, these technicalities likely felt like barriers between her and closure. Every postponed ruling or evidentiary objection extended her mourning into a bureaucracy that seemed endless and impersonal. It's a paradox that defines many modern trials: the same precision that protects fairness can also prolong suffering. Erika Kirk's presence in the courtroom became its own kind of testimony. She spoke no words, gave no statements, yet her silence was louder than any argument. Sitting through procedural discussions about motions and filings while knowing her husband's final moments were being dissected as evidence was an agony the system rarely acknowledges. To the legal machine, she was part of the victim's family. To everyone else, she was a reminder of what justice sometimes forgets, the human story buried under paperwork and protocol. Her stillness was not passive, it was resilience under pressure. And that quiet dignity stood in contrast to the detached rhythm of courtroom procedure. What this case exposes, beyond guilt or innocence, is the uneasy truth about how justice operates. The law can be flawless in its language yet feel hollow in its heart. It protects rights but can neglect emotions, it prizes balance but can overlook compassion. When society sees comfort granted to the accused and cold bureaucracy faced by the bereaved, the perception of justice fractures. This divide, between moral accountability and procedural neutrality, isn't new, but State v. Robinson brings it into sharp focus. The courtroom's goal is fairness, the family's need is closure. Bridging those two realities may be the hardest part of justice itself. In the end, the trial of Tyler Robinson isn't just about one man's crime, it's a mirror held up to the nation's conscience. It forces us to ask what justice should look like when fairness collides with grief. Can we honor the Constitution without erasing compassion? Can we protect the rights of the accused without silencing the pain of the innocent? As the hearings continue, one truth remains: until the system learns to balance both law and empathy, the courtroom will remain divided, not by verdicts, but by emotion. And as Erika Kirk sits through each motion and each ruling, America is reminded that behind every defendant's right stands a family's broken silence, still waiting to be heard.